Good morning. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. We all know the number 613. Taryag, the Hebrew letters that form that number, and 613 is the number of mitzvos in the Torah, the number of biblical commandments in the written Torah. What's interesting is that there's only one source in the entire Talmud that mentions this. There's no such source in the Torah itself for the number 613, and only one source in the Talmud, Rabbi Simlai, says that there are 613 mitzvos in the Torah. But there is no definitive list of what they are. And there are lots of questions about how to arrive at the number 613. So you see, it's like working backwards. If you know the answer is 613, what list can you come up with that gives you 613 mitzvahs? Some of the questions include the following. For example, there's a mitzvah in the Torah, Kedoshim Tiyu, be holy. That's a mitzvah. But that's a mitzvah that covers every area of life. Is that counted as one mitzvah? Is it not counted? Is it counted as 20 mitzvahs? Or, for example, the mitzvah to keep Shabbos is repeated several times in the Torah. Is it listed once in the 613, or is it listed more than once? Or, for example, famously, the verse, Lo sonu es hager, do not oppress the stranger, 36 times. The same mitzvah is recorded in the Torah. Is it listed once, or is it listed 36 times? Chanukah and Purim, are they listed? Well, they're rabbinic holidays. So how in the world could they be listed in the list of 613 mitzvos in the Torah? Well, but the Torah does say to listen to the words of the chachamim, of the sages. So maybe whatever the sages say, anytime they enact a holiday for the Jewish people, maybe that should be counted. So there are lots of questions like this. And there are several famous lists. One of the early ones was written by Rav Sadia Gaon. The most famous, I would say, was written by the Rambam, Maimonides, and the Ramban, Nachmanides. Now, Ramban did not write his own list. He wrote notes on the Rambam, Maimonides. So the Rambam lists 613, and on several of them, the Ramban says, no, this is not in the list. And on several of them, he says, this one is in the list, but it's not counted by the Rambam. So they both come up with 613, but there are slight differences between them. Famously, one of the disputes between the Rambam and the Ramban is the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Is it a mitzvah to settle on the land of Israel? Maimonides, the Rambam, does not count it as one of the 613. Ramban Nachmanides does count it. Now, obviously, it can still be a mitzvah and not be counted in the list of 613. And the truth is, there's really nothing special about being listed in the number 613. It really is more of an academic exercise. Okay, so we have different lists. Each one starts with a methodology, because I gave you some of the questions before, so each one has to start with a methodology that states, here's how I'm going to count multiple mitzvos, here's how I'm going to count mitzvos that are include lots and lots of things. And then they give the list based on their methodology, and it is a fascinating study. Most of the lists agree that a one-time happening is not counted in the list of 613. For example, just before the Exodus, God tells the Jewish people to put blood on the doorpost. That is not counted as one of the 613 mitzvahs. It was a command by God. It was a mitzvah then, but since it's not something that's ongoing, it's not included in the list of 613. Rav Sadia Gaon agrees with that, and Rav Sadia Gaon does not count that putting blood on the doorpost as a mitzvah as one of the 613. However, Rav Sadia Gaon does count the following passage in our Torah portion. We discussed this before. Vayitzav Moshe ha'am bayom hahu lemor. Moshe commanded the people, telling them that when you cross over into the land of Israel, Eile yamdu levarechas ha'am al har Grizim. 6 of the tribes will stand on the top of the mountain of Har Grizim, and 6 of the tribes on the Mount Avel, and the Levium will be in the middle. And remember, this is like the induction ceremony, the initiation ceremony, where the entire Jewish people are accepting upon themselves to observe all the mitzvos as soon as they get into Israel. And the Levium will turn to one way, and they'll say, Arur ha'ish asher yaseh pesel masecha. Cursed is the person who will make an idol. And all the people will answer, Amen. And then they turn to the other side and they say, blessed is the people who do not make an idol. And all the people will say, Amen. And the last one was one that we discussed early this week. Arur asher lo yakim is divrei haTorah zos. Cursed is one who does not uphold this Torah. And all the people said, Amen. We spoke about that line before. Rav Sadia Gaon counts this as one of the 613 mitzvos, even though clearly it was a one-time event. So if Rav Sadia Gaon in his methodology says that a one-time event is not counted in Taryag in 613, how in the world is this ceremony counted in the list of 613 mitzvahs? Now, on the work of Rav Sadia Gaon, his list of mitzvahs, there's a famous commentary written by Rabbi Yerucham Perlow, a great scholar. And Rabbi Perlow says, excuse me. Rabbi Perlow says that this was not a one-time mitzvah. This was the beginning, the initiation of an ongoing mitzvah, which we know by the words, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh. Every Jew is responsible for every other Jew. And what this ceremony was doing is not just saying any individual who does this, but every one of you Jewish people is responsible to make sure that nobody else is doing it. So to practice and to live by this mitzvah, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh, every Jew is a guarantor for the other Jew, for every other Jew. That is an ongoing mitzvah. And every time we act like that, we're fulfilling this mitzvah. Now, I've shared this before with some of you in a different context, that this is the source of a very important principle in Jewish law. It's a little technical, called Yotza Motzi. Let me explain what that means. Under normal circumstances, let's say a person has a mitzvah to fulfill. I have a mitzvah to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. And let's say I heard the shofar, so I fulfilled the mitzvah. So I'm done. If I say to myself, you know what, I'd like to do it again. I want to be able to think more deeply, or no, you fulfill the mitzvah, you made the bracha, you fulfill the mitzvah, that's it, you're done. However, let's say after davening, I go for a walk and I meet a Jew, and the Jew says to me, I didn't hear the shofar. I have the right, the obligation to blow the shofar for that person. Again, how can I do that? I already fulfilled the mitzvah. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. Every Jew is a guarantor for every other Jew. If there is a Jew that did not yet fulfill the mitzvah of hearing the shofar, then I have not fulfilled my mitzvah of blowing the shofar, because my obligation is not only to make sure that I blow the shofar or hear the shofar, my obligation is to make sure that every Jew hears the shofar. And so I go right ahead and blow the shofar for that person. Similarly with Kiddush on Friday night. Let's say I'm at home with my family, I make Kiddush, I fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush, I drank the wine, I fulfill the mitzvah. Let's say later that night I take a walk, and let's say I come upon a Jew who says to me, I didn't make Kiddush, and I'm sorry to say I don't even know how, I don't know the words. So again, I'm allowed to make Kiddush for that person. I'm repeating it. How can I repeat it? I already fulfilled the mitzvah. No. As long as there is one Jew in the world that has not fulfilled the mitzvah, I haven't yet fulfilled my obligation. Because Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh. Every Jew is responsible for every other Jew. There's another source, the Noam Elimelech. That's Rabbi Elimelech of Lezhinsk, who suggests a different interpretation of the word arev. What I said to you before, arev means guarantor, one who is responsible for. In monetary matters, if I co-sign a loan for you, I am a guarantor, which means if you don't have the money, they'll come to me to collect it. I'm a guarantor. If you did not fulfill the mitzvah, I have the obligation to help you fulfill the mitzvah. Each one of us is a guarantor for each other. The Noam Elimelech says that the word arev should be interpreted as the phrase in Shir HaShirim, Ki kolech arev. God says about the Jewish people, your voice is sweet. Arev means sweet. Kol Yisrael arevim zeh lezeh means every Jew sweetens one another. Rosh Hashanah is a 2-day holiday, even in Israel. The Talmud discusses the technical reason why, even in Israel, it's a 2-day holiday. But Rabbi Elio Dessler provides a different interpretation that is fascinating and very, very relevant to us. And it's based on a line in the Zohar, the major source of Jewish mysticism, of Kabbalah. The Zohar says that the first day of Rosh Hashanah is Dina Kasha, strict judgment, Kasha, rough, strict. And the second day of Rosh Hashanah is Dina Rafa, soft judgment, merciful judgment. What's the difference? Why should the 2 days be different? So the Arizal explains as follows. And this really, I must tell you, I learned this many, many years ago. I always had the question, 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, and we're saying the exact same prayers. How am I supposed to have the enthusiasm on the second day that I had on the first day? On the first day I said, Hayom Haras Olam, today is the birthday of the world. So how do I, Unasana Tokev Kedushas Hayom, let's tell the greatness of this day. So what am I supposed to feel on the second day? I mean, I said it yesterday, so it's a repetition. And when I learned this many years ago, it gave me a whole different insight into the second day of Rosh Hashanah. A very inspiring insight. And it goes like this. On the first day of Rosh Hashanah, every one of us is judged by God as an individual. God puts his spotlight on me alone and on you. And I've got to tell you, that's a frightening thing. For me, it's a frightening thing. Because if God is evaluating me, I hope God finds some good stuff, but there's a whole lot that's not so good. And that judgment, that's going to be rough. The judgment of the first day, ooh. That's truly frightening. But then there's the judgment of the second day. And the judgment of the second day is not a judgment for each individual. It's a judgment for the kahal, for the tzibur, for the community. And that ends up being a very, very different judgment. Because if God is looking at all of us all together, well, I may lack certain things, but you have certain things that you excel in. And there may be something that you lack that I excel in. As a group, we look fantastic. We look great. And that leads to a much softer, more merciful judgment. That's the second day. When a person comes to the synagogue to pray as part of a minyan, it's not only that the mitzvah is better because it's better to pray in a group, but it's also better qualitatively because as a group, each one of us sweetens the other, so that the collective is better in God's eyes and receives a better judgment. The deficiency of one of us is offset by the strength of another. And therefore, the most important, not the most, a most important part of preparing for Rosh Hashanah is to make sure that you are involving yourself in the needs of the community and that you are praying not only for what you need. Of course, every one of us prays for what we need. I pray for what I individually need as a person, but I also want to focus on what all of us need as a community, as a klal, as a tzibur. Because that's how, on the second day, we're more easily able to merit a positive judgment. And finally, in a very practical sense, from now till Rosh Hashanah, we should be thinking to ourselves, how can we fulfill this mitzvah of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Lezeh, according to the Noam Elimelech? How can I sweeten the lives of the people around me? If I make someone smile, if I call someone who's lonely, if I do a favor for someone, if I greet someone with a nice smile, if someone new comes in and I greet them and welcome them so they feel warm and invited and not like an outsider, every Jew has the opportunity to sweeten every other Jew. And we should make a conscious effort to sweeten each other, because there's no telling the positive impact it will have on our group. I learned this from a friend of mine, Rabbi Josh Fagelson. When you have a choir, a group of people singing, or a band, a group of people playing an instrument, sometimes the music requires the players or the singers to hold a single note longer than any individual is able to hold it. How is that possible? So what happens is the singers or the musicians are trained as a group to mindfully stagger, taking a breath. So the sound appears uninterrupted. So if there are 10 people and we're all singing the same note, and one of us takes a breath, and then another, but not all at the same time, it sounds uninterrupted, but we're able to go much, much longer. Before Rosh Hashanah, as Rosh Hashanah approaches, let's remember music. Take a breath. The rest of the chorus will sing. The rest of the band will play. And then rejoin so others can breathe. And then together, even though each of us is stopping, each of us is taking a breath, but together we can sustain a very long and beautiful song for a very long time. You don't have to do it all. All you have to do is add your voice to the song of the group. This is what elicits Dina Rafa, the soft, merciful judgment. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.